So after I dropped my video defending Stella, a lot of you were confused about one thing in particular. Basically, I asked the question of whether or not Stella is truly evil or simply just misunderstood. Many of you guys adamantly claim that because she's a demon, she's evil by default, and therefore all discussion of her morality might as well be null and void. This is a sentiment that I very strongly disagree with, and in this video I really wanted to explain why I disagree with it, and how this way of thinking ignores a pretty major aspect of the show. Before I begin, many of you watch my Helluva Boss videos yet don't subscribe. Please help support the channel today by hitting that sub button, so that you don't miss out on any of my uploads. Anyone who does so is my bestie, and I love you so much.
Excuse me. What?
Now, if you read the title, you probably already know that the aspect I'll be talking about today is character development. I'll be going into how it's framed by the show, why that's important, and how it makes dismissing every character as evil not make a whole lot of sense. I think that the best place to start is by establishing the main character's narrative roles within the show. So what is the role of these characters? Personally, I'd refer to them as the protagonists of Helluva Boss. I mean, the story is told from their perspective, and we are of course meant to root for them, you know, as opposed to the villains, or rather the antagonists. However, it obviously isn't that straightforward. These dudes do some straight up atrocious shit, with murder probably being at the top of the list. Can they really be protagonists? And if so, what separates them from the antagonists? Okay, so let's address that first question. To understand how and why these people are considered protagonists, we first need to understand why we root for them in the first place. Okay, if you asked me if Stolas or Blitz were evil after I'd first watched a pilot, or even the first episode, my answer would have certainly been yes. Not only are they murderers, they're also huge dicks. Huge murderous dicks.
That's messed up. But I paid for it!
However, as the show goes on, we start to learn more about them. Stolas goes from this evil dark prince to a deeply troubled parent in a loveless marriage. Blitz goes from literal demon garbage to a deeply insecure dude with an estranged sister, and it's hinted at that he might have a tragic backstory. As we learn more about these characters and their sympathetic or even redeeming qualities, we start to form an attachment to them. We start to understand them. They go from simply evil to complex and layered. There's something that I think a lot of people overlook when they claim that character development doesn't matter in this show. Whether their reason is because they think demons can't be anything but evil, or because the show is predominantly a comedy. This is that the show explicitly frames the characters becoming better people as something it actively wants, and that this is a central focus of the show. What do I mean by this? Well, let's begin by saying that each of the show's protagonists has an arc. This is probably most obviously apparent with Stolas, so let's go ahead and use him as an example.
Why, hello, my big-dicked Blitzy.
In episode 2, Lululand, Stolas is failing his daughter because he's not listening to what she wants. This conflict is, of course, resolved by Stolas finally listening to her, and the show actually rewards Stolas for this breakthrough, by having him earn back his daughter's trust. If the show didn't mean for him to improve himself, it wouldn't have had fixing his shortcomings be the focal point of the entire episode, or let alone have rewarded him for overcoming them. That's not the only example either. In episode 5, The Harvest Moon, we see Moxxie get pushed around and emasculated by Striker. The resolution to this conflict is Moxxie finally finding the confidence to confront Striker directly, instead of letting himself be bullied by him. And Moxxie too is rewarded for improving himself in the way of earning the respect of Millie's parents. This may not necessarily be the show rewarding Moxxie for being a nicer person, but it certainly does reward him for being a better person, which further proves my point about the show encouraging growth.
So, is that progress?
This is their role as protagonists. A strong and compelling protagonist doesn't start from point A and then in the end end up at the exact same point. Instead, they grow and change and end up at point B. They don't necessarily always grow and change into better people, but Helluva Boss has made it exceedingly clear that that's very much what it's going for in the way that it frames positive character growth. So we've established that at the very least, the protagonists are nuanced characters with the capacity to become better people. people. Now let's address that second question from earlier. What exactly separates the protagonist from the antagonists of this show, who morally aren't much worse? It may or may not surprise you, but the simple answer is merely the narrative's perspective. In reality, any character the show chose to focus on could have been the protagonist. If we take Verosika for example, who's to say that she wronged Blitz any more than he wronged her? And did Stryker really do anything wrong, or did he make some compelling points that we were willing to overlook because we've gotten to know Stolas a bit better? The one and only reason we see the villains in Helluva Boss as irredeemably evil is because their purpose in the narrative is to be antagonists. However, much like protagonists, antagonists can grow and change too. Because of this, I think it's very fair to say that we might see the likes of Stella be more than simply evil, especially with the show's inclination to encourage its characters to improve. The moralities of Helluva Boss's main characters aren't black or white. As we've spent time with them and gotten to learn more about their deeper sides, labeling them as evil simply because they're demons and do normal demony stuff like murder seems a bit unfair, doesn't it? They genuinely care for the people they love, some are just straight up decent people somehow, and some are really hot and therefore deserve to be excused of all crimes. The show goes out of its way to say that these characters aren't wholly evil, and to me, labeling them as such and saying they can't be better just seems like a total fallacy.
And I say, Zangief, you are bad guy. But this does not mean you're bad guy.
Be sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and definitely subscribe for more awesome content like it. I had a lot of help writing this script for the video by Uncle Penguin on Twitter, so please sure to check him out. And hey, why not follow my Twitter while you're at it? Finally, I have a Patreon now with a few cool perks. If you have some cash to spare, and you want to make sure I eat, links in the description. Consider checking it out. Thank you so much for watching. Comment with your thoughts on the video down below, and I'll see you next time.